one more time. Cool. Okay. Um, let's do this. So, we'll begin with this image. So I have this image. It'll be sort of our base image that we start from. So what we're going to do today is we're going to combine a bunch of images, right? We're making photographic art. And photographic art to my mind is basically just a mixture of images and kind of creating sort of something wholly new with the images that you're working with. It represents something too that is utilizing different tools and often is sort of putting, you're trying to create something that has like either a new focal point or something, that is sort of unlike the original starting point image. So photographic art often combines multiple images and sort of stretches the extent of the product, sort of stretches the what you can do in ACDC. And I think puts you in this position where you're kind of almost doing graphic design or something like that. The term I think photographic art can be kind of loose in that it can kind of incorporate design elements as well as incorporating elements like what's the word for it? Incorporating just general sort of photographic editing tools, right? Using light and that sort of thing. So, so what we're going to do here is we're going to add the cityscape in this section here. We're going to use existing sort of the sky and sort of existing elements of this image in order to sort of position the city sort of in this case to an extent behind this section here. And then we're going to use like a bunch of different blend tools. So we'll do that as well. Let's begin with just dragging and dropping or using the add a file as a layer tool to just add the cityscape, which we have just put in our film strip here, to our layer panel. And when you add a file in the layer panel, it's going to bring up this, this is essentially the move tool, as you can see right here. And it just gets you to commit your location of your image. I find that when we're doing this, if we go to our layer panel and we blend it to begin with, it actually makes it a bit easier to position it and sort of to understand where we want this image to end up. So I'm going to begin by just blending it first, setting it to multiply before we actually commit to placing it. And I think we're going to place it about there. And the benefit of this is that it enables me to place it and being able to see the context of what's happening in the background. So as you can see, the multiplied layer is placed. And importantly too, sort of we can see that there's still remnants of the picture beneath it that appear right there. So you can see the sort of the background in this section here. I sort of chose this image too because the actual background of the image is quite dark, which enables us to sort of blend things together really easily because as it's quite dark, there's a lot of like loss in terms of detail in that area. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a copy of this image and you'll see why in a moment. So if I copy this image, let's just pull down some elements of opacity. It sort of fits better in with the color of the foreground and background than just the one on its own. So we're going to place the two. And then what we're going to do is we're going to merge these two images together. And when we merge an image together, it treats it like one object rather than it being treated as two objects. The thing to note about merging is that it is it's destructive. So you got to be conscious of when you're merging two files together. And this is an instance where I want to merge them together. And just to give you an example, why, if I wanted to make, say, a vibrance adjustment to both of these images, both these city images that appear beneath them, but not the image beneath, I would have to add two separate vibrance adjustments, and it just increases the overall size of the file rather than merging these two together and treating them like one object. Then that way, and then I can make further adjustments, in this case, the vibrance to the images that appear, or the image that appears beneath it. So if I merge them together, I'm getting a better output in this case, and it just sort of it the benefit of me having these two images right now was just to get that multiply effect, almost a doubling of the darker portions of these images. So I'm just going to combine those. So I'm going to take these two here. I'll click on the top image, and if I simply click on the merge layer down, it will place it within the image beneath it. And now these two layers are treated as one layer. And that is how that looks. So we have a skyline here, and obviously there's parts of the skyline that don't work, right? For example, if we look at the top portion of our image here, we can see that that is that's definitely a cutoff here. So we want to use blending and masking in order to sort of work that out. So we'll start there. That's a good place to start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my multiplied layer that I have here, this one right here. I'm going to click on the Add Layer Mask tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly go through the process of masking out or turning off parts of our image that are unwanted. And a great example is this top portion here, this line that we can see that's very obvious, and we want to get rid of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, after I've turned on the mask, and just to reiterate that too, so the mask is right here. I just take the layer that I want to mask out, click on the Add Layer Mask, and what it doesn't actually do anything to the image yet, but it adds this little masking box, which is this white thumbnail box that appears to the right of our image. And then from here, what we can do is we can actually turn this layer off or on, either in full or selectively. So if I was to turn it off in full, what I would do is I would have a mask that was black, right? So black turns this layer off. And if I was to set it to white, it turns this layer on. The cool interaction here, though, is because we don't need to necessarily do that to the whole image. We can just do it to a part of the image. So I'm going to take a brush tool, just the regular old brush tool, and ensure that the foreground is set to black, which again, when we're treating with masks, black is turning the mask off. And if I brush, you can see that what happens is that is then turned off, right? In that part of our image. So it disappears from view. So you can reference this actually. Oops, I'm just going to turn that portion on there. You can reference that in the thumbnail itself. We were able to get rid of that nasty line that's in the thumbnail by turning the portion of our image off, basically brushing on black, which as far as masks is concerned, is turned as off. So when we turn a layer off, when we brush on black, when we mask an element out, basically what we're doing is we're then inferring the visual information from the image that appears beneath it. So we're taking this image and we're presenting it because the portion of our image is treated as not visualized. So another relevant spot here, I think, would be, I'm going to find a way to sort of tastefully work this element out as well. And we might need to do some exposure adjustments in here to fix elements of this. So I think what I'm going to do, we'll just start with that for now, and then we'll play around with a layer over top of that. So what we want to do is we want to sort of darken this portion here. And I'll show what that looks like. I know that you can probably still see a little portion right here that is visualized as the what's the word for it? As still looks like the you can see through, which we're going to fix that in a moment as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort of add a exposure adjustment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to darken. And instead of applying this this exposure universally to our image, we're going to treat it as it's off. Once again, we'll turn it off by right-clicking on the mask and setting as black. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to do the inverse of what we just did. We're going to turn this mask on. Ooh, that's too dark. Let's do a little bit less opacity. Yeah. And we'll just brush on right in this area here. And what that's going to do is it's just going to justify the space a little bit. And we'll sort of hide some of that foreground element in there. So that looks like that. And before we could see a bit too much of that building here as it pertains to the rocks beneath. So just to reiterate, all we did was add an exposure adjustment like this. Like all adjustment layers that are located right here, they come with their own mask. And that's this black box or this box here that appears here. Same as the mask that we added to our base image. What this mask does and what's relevant about it is it gives us the ability to essentially change where this exposure adjustment is being applied to our image. For example, if I was to crank the exposure in my image here, right, I can turn off the exposure in certain elements by doing sort of the opposite of what I just did, which is kind of turn on black. And we can reference this in our exposure adjustment thumbnail. So when I click on that, it's going to take a moment to make the adjustment. It's going to really take its time for a moment here. Ooh, it's taking a while. Okay, one sec. There we go. So you can see that on our exposure mask right here, we have this bottom portion of our image that has a bit more black in it, and as well as some gray because of the feathering on my nib. But also ultimately what this does is it turns off that effect in the area that's black and the darker gray portions here. The same is the case for the areas that we've turned on. Basically, we've added an exposure adjustment in this area right here, turned it off elsewhere. So basically, there was a little bit of a darkened exposure added to this area and no exposure effect anywhere else. So I think, okay, there's a couple other things that I want to do here. I think the first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of this section right here in the background. You can still see a little bit of that sort of mossy, rocky area there. And then we'll look at probably fixing this section here. So to do this, so the reason why we see this area at all is because this layer has a blend mode on it. It's essentially being treated as having a reduced opacity. It's more complicated than that, but that's a very sort of rough description of what's going on with the multiply adjustment. For example, if I was to go back to normal, you could see the sort of the relationship of this image to the image that appears beneath it, but it remains unblended. So we want to maintain that multiply adjustment. What we're going to do here is I'm going to duplicate the layer itself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it to the top for now. And I'm just going to, let's apply a normal blend mode to this topmost layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the mask black for now. So it's going to turn it off. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to sort of turn the blending, or rather I'm going to paint this normal application, this image on in the areas that I want to see it, distinctly being sort of right here. So what you can see is that we now get rid of that background appearance and we start to gain a little bit of that image coming through. I'll clean this up in a moment here, but you can see what I mean, that we're able to get rid of that background by essentially changing this blend mode. We might actually move exposure up in a moment here. We'll see. The other thing I want to clean up is the skyline here. So all I'm doing is I took my normal layer, not a multiplication layer in this case, and all I did was add a mask. And then once again, I'm just painting on the part of this layer, this sort of regular application, non-multiplied application on in this area. And what that does is it essentially turns it on in our image and we can see that portion. And it, by effect, hides the background. which is that initial layer there. So I'm going to do the inverse now. I'm just going to clean this up by adding black here. I'm just going to sort of blend these two together. And a larger nib has a larger feathering, so it sort of has a more natural look to it. And then I might slowly, very slowly, just reduce the opacity a little bit in here. And let's just play around with moving this exposure up. We'll see. I'm just going to play around with it. I just want to sort of bring the two together. Oh yeah, there we go. I'll play around with that some more now. I might actually move this exposure adjustment down. There we go. Yeah, no, we'll keep it there. I'll think about this some more. Anyway, so what we have here is we have our city, and now we've been able to get rid of that background that we saw earlier by just essentially reducing, or rather removing the blend mode on the duplicated layer, and then just reducing the opacity slightly and adding a mask. How did you move the adjustment layer? So if you click the adjustment layer, CB, and you actually go to the move tool itself, it gives you the ability to move like the exposure adjustment, as you can see there. I don't necessarily have to finalize that movement, like I just discard it or commit it, but it actually moves it around. So it treats it just like any other layer. Does that answer your question? Good question. It rarely comes up, but it did just then. So yeah, the move tool is just they're basically the dimension tools are the first three here. So the scrub tool itself, the ability to resize the canvas, and then the move tool. The move tool is specific to layers, and then the canvas resize affects the whole composition, and then the scrub tool. I mean, you're familiar with the scrub tool, so. Okay, we're gonna add another element. So we're gonna add. I want to clean up this side, and to do that, we're gonna add this kind of tree trunky look here, and I'm gonna add this sort of vines to the left side of my image here. So once again, because I'm adding a new layer, it's going to bring the layer into the layer panel. And then it's going to prompt me to essentially move my layer. So CB's question earlier, whenever you bring in a new layer or image, it'll always prompt you to use the move tool. So hence why I get this yellow bounding box that enables me to increase or decrease the dimensions on my image and the, pardon me, ability to position it and place it. So for right now, I'm just going to place it here. We might need to resize this or remove it, but for right now, that's good. And then what I'm going to do is I'm once again going to blend this. I might do some erasing on it with the masking, but for right now, I'm just going to blend it as, what are we going to do? I might do a lighten blend mode. Let's see. Yeah, lighten. How else could we work with this here? Let's see here. Okay. I want to do that. You know what? Lighten's going to work perfect. So, I'm going to lighten this image here. And as you can see here, what you're seeing is a sort of this tree layer here, this vine layer, and another blend mode. And we can see that that blend mode is being applied because of the way that it comes through right here. However, we'll notice that one of the key elements of this is that the contrast isn't high enough to sort of get rid of that haloing that we see on the edge of this image here, because it's clearly a lighter exposure than the image in our background. So there's a very easy fix to this. Quite literally, what we're going to do is we're going to add I think we're going to just add an exposure adjustment. And with that exposure adjustment active, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip this exposure. So my exposure is currently affecting my whole image, as you can see, but I don't want that to happen. I just want this exposure to affect my tree layer beneath it. And so we have this clipping icon, this little diamond that appears right there. When you click this diamond, this exposure adjustment, instead of being treated as universal and being applied to all of the layers that appear beneath it, that exposure adjustment is being applied to just the layer that appears beneath it. Really key thing to remember is this icon. It can save you so much time. And then what we'll do is we'll lower the exposure until it feels like it's justified in our image. And I think what we'll do is we'll increase the contrast and we'll just blend the two together. About yay. Maybe a bit darker. Just till it looks like to the eye. That's pretty cool, honestly. So that looks good. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge this layer, this adjustment layer, onto my my vine layer. So I want this exposure to be affecting this layer beneath it. So I'll click on the, or sorry, I want to basically merge these two so that I can make a blending of this tree layer. So I'm going to take this exposure, it's being applied, and now it's going to be applied to this layer. So previously it was above it, and now it's being treated as characteristics of it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to add a, once again, like we did to our city layer, I will add a layer tool, or sorry, add a mask, and we'll just brush out the edges. So my mask being applied, it's fully turned on, which is good. And then I'll turn the brush foreground color to black. And I'm just going to brush out using the feathering tool to sort of merge them in. And now we have a sort of vine-like appearance on the edge of our image here. I want to move these layers up. Let's see if it'll let me. Yeah, I need to move them together though. Can we move them together? No, I can't. That's too bad. Well, do it this way. Let's see if it'll even let me. Otherwise, I'll just go back. We'd have to reblend it though. See how I do. Not bad, pretty close. It's one of those things where when you place it initially with the move tool, there we go. You want to really nail it, but that's okay. So I'm just going to take this and I'll paint on a bit more. There we go. And I will add this exposure a bit right there. Beautiful. Yeah, that's a bit better placement than when we placed it earlier. Okay, so what we've done so far, okay, is we've added our base layer, right? Let's just remove all the layers and talk about them initially. We've added our base layer. Oh, fun thing that I didn't mention, but you can do, and I should mention it now. Sometimes what's a cool function that you can do is you can take, especially when you're working with backgrounds and you want to manipulate the backgrounds, you can take your layer, in this case I just duplicated a layer, you can take it as a special effect, and you can play around with the mirror tool. I actually think a mirror is very handy for making photographic art and manipulating the shape of backgrounds. So for example, you can take your background and you can sort of change the scope of it. I mean, totally changes both the mood and atmosphere of it. Like for example, if we were to sort of do what we did previously, you know, you could position your city in the center sort of thing. Or alternatively, we can do a vertical blend, you know, and then you can kind of have this cavernous look rather than it looks like it's being taken out of a cave. Now it is in a cave, you know. So just a note that this is kind of a fun, like looks like you can get sort of like a water appearance here too, almost like a reflection of from within inside the cave, right? So you can use the mirror tool with certain backgrounds, and it really can kind of like create some interesting scapes that you can create with. So we created we started with our background. We added a city layer, okay, that we made a multiplication of. So we added a blend mode, and then we just doubled down basically by duplicating that layer and copying or merging that layer with the other city. So I had two city layers that were being applied through multiplication blending, and just the two of them together is the right saturation. It looks like the right lighting. Then what I did is I went in and I added my a city layer just above that, just to hide some of these elements that really have this appearance of what's the would be the word for it, that basically where we can still see some of the brighter elements. Gone through and just added a normal layer above it of that same cityscape that it really allows me to see that come through. Then what I did is I just added an exposure adjustment and masked out a portion, a darker portion, to sort of cover or blend the foreground image from the background image, with the foreground image being, in this case, the city. Even though it's in the background, it is the foreground image, with the background image that's this kind of cave-like space. And then finally, what I did is I went in, so far, not finally, but one of the last things that I've done so far is I've just added a dark layer. In this case, what it was is it's a little forest sort of vine layer. And because it was light, or sorry, because the image was already quite dark, with something like a lighten effect, it'll take the pre-existing light elements of my image and it'll focus on those and make the darker elements of my image transparent, which is perfect once I added a layer that adjusted the exposure and the contrast of the image. And from there, I just blended it in. So one of the remaining elements that I had in the sort of the mock-up image was to add sort of like a moon to really give it a fantastic or sort of science fiction sort of vibe to it. So we'll do that now. And how we do that is I'm going to take my moon layer here that we've added, and I'll just pull it on top. And you can see that it has like a dark background, right? And it has a sort of like a it's, in this case it's half a moon. But that's fine because we're probably just going to place it in the background, like behind our city, in such a way that it actually interacts with the horizon of our image here. I'm just gonna use an overlay for right now and commit this layer. And we'll find we'll probably have to blend out the background here, but I just want to see what happens if I subtract it. Yeah, it totally works, but it's affecting the city line. So which would be more inoffensive? Subtract. Subtract in this case is it's getting rid of the black, right? So it's treating that area as white, which then becomes invisible because this is a blend mode. Whereas overlay, we can still see that black, but it has a really nice like sort of blue color to it here. Okay, let's play around with this. So we've placed our layer. I think what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to get rid of the black. Let's go in. We'll add a magic wand selection. And we'll select the color black in this layer. Okay, we're not clicking on the background. We're just clicking on that black portion of our image. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the inverse. And when I select the inverse, our active selection will be treated as the moon portion right here. Now I know you're thinking, oh, Adam, it's also covered all of the background, but that doesn't actually matter because we're just blending this one image. So it's only going to be affecting the visual element of this this image, which in this case is the moon portion and the upper portion of our image here. So just to reiterate, all I did here was go, I want to get rid of this black, select the black, I want to select the opposite of what my selection is. So to cut this out, what I got to do is I got to inverse the selection. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Add Layer Mask tool. Now, when you have an active selection in AC/DC, as we do in this case, because we've used one of the selection tools, and then B, we can see that the active selection is red, right? That's an indicator that we have a selection. When we go to add a layer mask, it's going to mask that out for us. So you can see that here. We may need to refine that selection. Oh yes, we most assuredly do. So we'll do that first. Okay, we'll go refine selection. And we will shift the edge inwards. Yes, there we go. That should be, we'll see, we'll play around with this. I think that should work. Yeah. Beautiful. So we have our moon. Now we just need to justify this moon in the background. So it still needs to be, it still needs to have some sort of blend mode application. We'll play around and see which one we like the most. I really do kind of like that blue rather than the red that I had in my mock-up preview, but so we'll play around with that. We need to do two things. The first thing is we need to sort of decide on where this is in our image. I think it's going to be about here. And then what we're going to do is we need to erase this portion of the cave because we want obviously the moon to appear in the sky in the atmosphere, right? And then the second thing we want to do is we want to erase the part of the moon that's interacting with the cityscape here. So we can do that in a couple different ways, but I think one of the most effective ways we can do that is we can just go to one of these layers here, like our city layer, and we can select the sky and we'll see if this works. Because if the sky selection is good, then we can just add that to our mask. Yeah, let me just think about this too. Should we? Yeah, because we're going to be adding to this mask. Yeah, let's. I'm going to duplicate this layer. We'll see. Yeah, let's give it a go. I'm going to select the sky from this. And hopefully this does a good job. Oh, it did a great job. Okay. And then ideally what I'd like to do is now that I have this selection active, right? I'm going to go back to my moon layer here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can take it out of the background, the base space here. I just want to see if I can. Maybe what I can do is I can brush it out. Let's see. Or I can use the fill tool. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to take the paint bucket, I think. And we'll give this a go. And I'm going to fill in my mask. So this portion of a mask on my moon. With the paint bucket tool. Let's see if I need to select the inverse. Oops. Yes, I do. So I'll select the city in this case. Sorry, the city, not the globe. And I'm going to fill the red portion. So I'm just going to use the paint bucket tool on this image with the active selection that I made using the select sky. And I'm just going to, ooh, but we might need to, let's see if we have to refine this. Let's see. Yeah, maybe even just a little. See how it comes. Oh, not bad. Pretty good, actually. Wow. Okay. So I'm going to go over that again because I had to sort of teach myself as I was explaining it. Here's what we did. So we had our we had our image here that we've already gone ahead and removed the black portion of that original image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this layer, this city layer, as a sky example in our image. So when I go to select sky, what it's going to do is it's going to select it from the image that I have highlighted, okay? And then when that's complete, what I can do is I can highlight my other layer. So I can be active on another layer. So I click on this layer. And if I want to remove the city from my globe layer here, from my planet layer here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it to select the inverse of the sky. So by selecting the sky, that gives me a perfect selection in order to select the foreground. So I'll then inverse it. And all I'm going to do is with that complete, pardon me, I'm going to use the foreground tool and the paint bucket, pardon me, to fill black, in essence, turn this layer off. And so when I turn this layer off, the selection that I had, it actually hides it from view. And you can see that based upon the thumbnail here. So I can see in the thumbnail that the city skyline has been removed from the globe that we had here. Hopefully everybody can see that. So there's a couple processes involved here. The first process was I guess the selection of the sky, right? And then I utilized a different layer, inverted that sky selection to then remove it from my my mask thumbnail by essentially turning it off by coloring in with the paint bucket tool. Okay, pretty good. However, a couple issues. Still too bright, obviously. And then I need to get rid of the wall, the cave wall section of this as well, which we can do as well, no problem. So first thing I might do is I might lower the opacity on this layer slightly, and let's play around with some different blend modes. I was thinking overlay would appear really nice, and then I might just clean up the cloud portion here. But if I use overlay, I think it has more of a natural appearance than that like hugely dark and sort of a jarring moon appearance there. You would still have elements in the atmosphere that would appear before it, right? So that seems to make sense before for me. So I just want to get rid of this portion now, and that's fairly easy. What I'm going to do is, once again, I'm going to make a selection based off of a different layer. So I'm going to select this layer here, my base layer. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the brush tool. And I'll set my tolerance quite high. And I'll just brush on the edge of this wall here. Make a selection. And then I'll just go through and I will remove it. Same thing. Use the active layer, in this case, this layer. And then instead, this time, what I might do is I might just use the brush tool. I'll just take the brush tool instead of the fill tool, and I'll just brush on black. And what that's going to do is it's going to remove it. Let's see if that came out okay. Yeah, not bad. I just need to clean up the top portion here. And that removes it up there. You can see this is the only area that was negatively affected by that. So I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to clean it up. There we go. And a little bit right there. And we'll zoom out. And now that is in the background. The only other element that I would say that I would want to have pop through this is the cloud. So what I might do is I might treat the cloud as more visually important, although I don't like how much that's come off. We'll see. I'll play around with that. Mm, hmm. Just undoing that change. Yeah, is there a good way to do that? You know what I could do is I could take that element of the skyline and place it above this layer. I wonder what that would look like. It might, yeah, let's give it a go. This is not something I did in my mock-up either, but I'm gonna just to do this to play around with this. But what I'm gonna do here is I like this. I think this already looks good. I could go back one step and sort of fully cover that in. I think this looks good. I think this is like a really compelling image. There's a lot going on here. I'm just now in total perfection mode and I want to add a cloud over top of this. I basically want to steal from this layer and blend it over top of my moon here to give the appearance that the moon isn't is what would be the word for it? Coming before the cloud. Um, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of take an element out of my layer here and I'm going to simply select it actually. And I might just use the lasso tool. And I'm just going to take this cloud here. And let's see if I can blend this compellingly. I'm going to copy it. When I copy it, it adds it to the clipboard. And so when I paste it, oops, I was on the mask instead of the layer here. Classic mistake. So I'm going to copy from this layer. And let's just go in and let's add that here. So I'll copy. I'm on the correct layer. I need to copy from the image, not from the mask. Otherwise, it'll just treat it as a binary on or off. And let's place all these other layers on. And now that I have my cloud layer, let's see if I can figure out a blend mode that works with this. That isn't going to appear. Yeah. Okay. I had lighten earlier, and I think that that worked with the leaves, but it might not work for this. No, it won't. Darken. Darken May. Oh, saturation is working. Oh, no, it's too pink on the base there. Okay, which blend mode is the right one? Definitely not. Difference? No. Yeah, it might just be darken. In which case, I might just have to do this. Might have to lower the opacity of this, and I might just have to take my brush tool and slightly use low opacity and just pad out the edges here. Yeah, that might just be the move. But with both placed above, zoom out a little bit. Yeah, I do think adding that element was very subtle, but um so sort sorry, now that I'm sort of kind of finalizing that, I just we'll talk a little bit about more about the composition and we'll make some last changes. First thing I would do is I would certainly get rid of this. We don't need that much background in the base. That's too much. So we'll just remove that to sort of give the composition a bit more of a square feel to it. And I might make if I was going to finalize this, I might make some sort of photo effect, not this one necessarily, but I might play around with photo effects that I feel like make the composition, flatten the composition. Because there's so many elements with variations in color, I would use like some sort of like photo effect that's a bit more strong to sort of give it all contextually a little bit of like it feels like it fits together, you know? It makes it a bit more homogeneous color wise. And there's lots of different ones to play with. I mean, this one has a real green appearance to it, whereas like this one is a bit more blue in appearance. That mono one was very sepia toned. You have so many different options to choose from, but I would play around by adding definitely a photo effect to sort of yeah, homogenize those elements together. I think actually I did like sepia the most. I like a little bit of that brown in there. And obviously if it's full on, it's going to be too much, but I'm just going to probably reduce it by about, maybe we'll go 40%. Yeah. And yeah, that's sort of the composition from start to bottom. In regards to the photo effect, I would say yeah, I would say that the composition overall is like taking your base image and sort of using existing elements within it and adding in this case the city layer that I've added is informed based on the lighting in that base image and sort of using the space. In this case too, there's a lot of like really dark sort of negative spaces around the edge of my image here that allows me to sort of position this in there without needing to justify a lot of the city, especially in the corners. After that, it's about a matter of sort of using blending, right? In this case, I used subtraction, I used lighten, I used multiply a couple times as sort of blend modes. And then I used masking to sort of mask out subtle elements of my image. So let's talk a little bit about what we masked. If you recall from the beginning here, I'll go back. So the things that we masked out were like in our first image, right? We masked out the corner here because after placing our file, we got sort of a line at the top of the image here. All we did was mask that out. Then what we did is we sort of masked out the bottom portion here next to this sort of this foresty sort of scene here. After that, what we did is we added another layer. We added a sort of a duplication without a blend mode of our city to sort of get rid of the subtle elements that we saw in the background here. After that, we added an exposure adjustment to just darken up this space to sort of blend it all together. We added a lighten adjustment of this sort of leaves kind of fern space. And all we did with that is we subtracted the we added an exposure adjustment that increased the contrast and reduced the exposure on this layer. And then we just merged that adjustment into the layer. And then from there, what we did is we added a sort of a moon in the background. And what we did with that is we used the selection tool, whether it be select sky or a brush selection tool, to remove components of that background from the actual mask itself. So I was masking out portions of that. Specifically, the portions that I masked out of this moon was here, I'll illustrate it just so everyone could see it again. We masked out the the black portion, the edge, right? Didn't want that. We masked out the city using the select sky tool. We just selected an inversion of it. This is definitely the most complicated process, I think, in our whole workshop today. And then we use the brush selection tool to mask out this side portion here. And so we can see that reflected in the mask thumbnail. We can see that the city has been removed from our moon. We can see that our on the left here that a cave side entrance has been removed. And we can see that I've also erased a little bit of the cloud here to sort of justify that. With all of that said and done, I just added a photo effect on top to sort of give a homogeneous color feel to this image, which helps justify all of our decisions along the way. Yeah, does anyone have any questions in regards to anything? Does anyone want me to go over anything? I still have a little bit time left in this workshop here. It, funnily enough, I mean, it was one of those things where there was a lot to cover in this workshop, and I had so little time. But I'm hoping now that in the time left, I can cover anything else that sort of that people don't understand. This is really fun, right? Like this is one of those things where you know, most users when it comes to ACDC are editing photos, you know, that they take out and about. But how many users are taking those images and combining them with other images that they have to make really cool, unique photographic art? You can do that in ACDC. This is an incredibly powerful software that has the ability to do so many things. And more than anything else, this obviously I didn't have time to go into every single tool and to tell you all about masking and all these things, although I have talked about that a lot in different workshops. Hopefully today what you see this as is, hey, look at what fun things that I can do in ACDC that I wouldn't have thought to, you know, to do otherwise, right? This is a way to sort of explore the kind of ends of the software, explore the ability to do really, really interesting photographic compositions and yeah, and make art, you know? This is about making art. So this is also, by the way, I mean, I'm not a photographer, but I am a graphic designer, and this is something that I've been doing for a really long time. And I've often used ACDC to design the art that you see like for our like our box covers and things like that. I've used it to design our sort of like um background images when you install the product and stuff. I've used ACDC to do all sorts of fun stuff art wise. Okay, let's have a look at some of these questions if there are any. I will be watching the tutorial line and go slow. Absolutely. Well, we'll have it on YouTube as well. A lot of info here. Yeah, there's a lot. Norm, this has been one of the best workshops yet. I'm so glad that you felt that way. That's awesome. I mean, I really like talking about photographic art, and I want to keep scheduling these so we can sort of yeah, keep doing fun sort of compositions and stretching the product in addition to also teaching people how to use like tools and things like that. We need a Joe 90 machine. 100 times. Very interesting and inspirational workshop. Thank you so much. Pia, you're so welcome. Thank you for participating. Kim, where can we download images so we can replicate? Yes, here, I'll just copy and paste my message from earlier because I did link these. I will link them again. There we go. You should be able to see them. Yes, they will be. Cheryl asked, will your links be available on YouTube? Yeah, I will add it to the description, Cheryl. Great. Thank you so much. I can do that. Okay, let's go back. Ba, 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 ba. Yeah, no problem, Cheryl. Agree. I learned so much. Oh, I'm so glad, Mike. Outstanding workshop. Thank you, CB. Sonia, I'll need lots of practice, but the results are amazing. Thank you. Thank you. CB said application of mask from one layer to a different layer opened up a whole new avenue to explore. Yeah, that's something that I maybe took for granted too. Taking a mask from one layer, you can copy them quite literally, right? Right, you can copy masks using the copy function. You can also use the selection basket to make selections, right? But the other thing you can do is you can just simply make a selection from one layer and then mask a layer based on that selection, which I think is also what you're referring to. So Scott said, way over my head at this point, but good eye opener for the potential with ACDC. Absolutely. And if you feel that way, Scott, too, you know, we do cover a lot more than just photographic art tutorials, right? Like our workshops are generally not this. Our workshops are generally a bit more intended for the beginner to intermediate level user. And I don't think that these are necessarily advanced tools in ACDC, but I do think that the subject matter, given the context that we take for granted that you know some of these tools, and that's probably where maybe the difficulty is there. So thanks for participating either way, even if that's the case, Scott. Appreciate it. Lots to process. Awesome. Kim, thank you again. Like I said, it'll be on the YouTube page, so no worries. You can catch the whole thing. Marv, excellent workshop. Thank you so much. You are so welcome. I will so enjoy doing this on my own pictures. Hey, awesome. Tag me in a photo. If you end up making photographic art and you share them on the community page, tag me. I want to see those. I really do. That would be really cool. Um, my email is aprice@acdsystems.com, or you can also just send me a personal message, which is way easier for me on the community portal. Just send me a chat me up there. Um, awesome. Okay, that being said, if anyone wants to copy those images once again, um, please repeat in future workshop the selecting in around masking in around another layer. Okay, I'll write that down. So you want to, what would I even call that workshop? So yeah, because we can do selections from other layers, but it's also incorporating selection basket and masking. Joel, what do you, Antoine, what do you want me to call that workshop? I can definitely make one of those workshops. What do you think would be a good, how do you copy the links now? They're just it's in the text. They should be to everybody there. Should be able to just copy those. They're just to a website called Unsplash, which is a free for commercial website. Advanced masking techniques. Thank you. Let's do it. I'll schedule it today. Advanced masking techniques. You got it, buddy. Thank you. That's a great suggestion. Okay, to recap, I will have this on YouTube. I'm going to upload it probably for the end of the day. Thank you, CB, for your input on that as well. And then what I will do is, so I'll have this uploaded. You should be able to see it tomorrow. I'll schedule a workshop on exactly that topic. Thank you for your suggestion, Antoine. If you have any questions or comments, just shoot me a message on the community portal. You can just chat me up directly there. I think I'm the host of all these workshops. It's either Rodrigo or myself, so you should be able to just click on my face icon there, and it'll take you to be able to chat with me there. So that'll work. And yeah, if there's no more questions, that's it for today, folks. Oh, you can't copy and paste. Is anyone else having that issue? Can you not copy and paste my chat? It doesn't give you the ability to just like click on it? Yes, in that you can't, or yes, yes, I can't. Okay. Okay. Well, so earlier someone suggested that's really frustrating. I thought that that was something you could do. Earlier I mentioned to another user, I apologize, I have forgotten your name, user, but I will incorporate these links in the YouTube video. So even if you weren't able to get them today, I will make sure that you can follow along, provided that you download them from the YouTube video. Does that help? Damn, that really stinks. Okay, Nancy said that left click, not right click to, so you were able to open the images. Yeah, I upload them within 24 to 48 hours, Kim. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm trying to include them wherever possible. Um Oh, the links work, you just can't copy from them. Oh, okay, okay. So users are suggesting that you just click on the link itself and it should open up in a new tab, but you can't copy the text itself. Okay, awesome. Okay, so they do they do work. And if they don't pop up, like I said, I will still add them to the YouTube description. That is 100% happening. So you can get it there. Okay. Thanks everybody. That's funny. All right, well, I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'm going to mute my mic now. An hour of talking takes it out of you, so have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for participating. Like I said, I'll have this live in the next 24 to 48 hours, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I will talk to you on March 8th, I believe, is my next one. So 2 weeks from now is when my next one is scheduled. So And I will, Antoine, I will have that suggestion for a future workshop. So I'll make sure to get that going for you. Thank you for the suggestion. Okay, folks. See you later.